All right, today while it's nice out, we're going to get the 7300 switched over to cut wheat. I don't really have before I cut beans. I would like to get the unloading auger reflighted because I've been getting an abnormal amount of splits out of this thing, and I think it's because the unloading auger, especially down at the bottom, is shot, and I think that's partly where I'm getting a lot of my splits from, is from that guy. What I'd like to do, and I thought they made it, but hell if I can find it, I thought they made poly auger flighting liner where it was a poly coil and you just screwed it onto your auger and either bolted it or riveted it onto the steel flighting, and that was your flighting repair. But either I'm not calling it the right thing or it doesn't actually exist because I can't find it. But that's what I'd like to do, but I can't find the stuff to do it. So maybe I was imagining it, but maybe somebody will know what I'm talking about and point me in the right direction. But other than that, it really doesn't need a whole lot. So all I gotta do, we gotta lock up the cutter bar on the head, pull the chopper off, change the sprocket, basically just give it a good going over. I do need to, and I don't know if it's going to get done this summer or not, I do need to pull the tailings auger off, or tailings elevator off, because there is a couple small pinholes in the auger, in the elevator trough, but it doesn't leak, and it's going to be a busy enough time leading up to fall with Rantoul and everything going on that I don't know if it's going to get done or not. So it's on the list, it's just not very high on the priority list. And speaking of Rantoul, we've got 51 days, 23 hours and 30 minutes. I was just on the website because I had to 51 days, 21 hours and 30 minutes until Rantoul. The people we normally camp with couldn't get their camp spot that they normally get, or their camp spots. They only managed to get one this year. So I lost my camping spot. So I had to make some phone calls, and now apparently there's a guy that owns a chunk of ground that butts up to the campground that's right next to the showgrounds, and he's offering dry camping there. And then there's also dry camping on the showgrounds for exhibitors. So I'm hoping it'd be nice if I could just dry camp right on the showgrounds. Although it sounds like they used to let people dry camp kind of in amongst the trailer parking, and that was getting out of hand last year. So now they actually have a dedicated dry camping spot on the showgrounds to take care of that problem. So we got that coming up too. It's gonna be, this has been a hectic summer between everything coming in so late because of the drought. So it feels like spraying and side dry or top dressing and all that just feels like it's way late. And then it's been and is gonna be a long summer. So anyhow, I guess we'll start at the cutter bar and just start at the front and work our way back on this thing. We are going to pick the reel up though, so I don't skewer myself. More better. So to lock the head, it's just a matter of shortening up these chains, although I need a deep well socket, not a shallow well socket. Now, the end ones are the hardest because you gotta try to work around this dang snout. Of course, it would also help if you could still get the right style of chain for this, which, as far as I've been able to tell, you can't. It's supposed to have like a round link chain. And when I had to go replace all these, I couldn't find that style of chain anywhere. Because oval link chain doesn't necessarily move correctly. Okay, I picked the cutter bar up with a forklift to free up all my hands. If you do this the way it actually says to do it in the book, they want you to set the head on the ground to collapse the cutter bar, but then you're down on your knees and leaning up over top of the grain pans, and then in between, it's easier to do it up off the ground like this. Well, I guess I shouldn't say it's easier per se, but it's definitely easier on the knees and the back. And the head if you stand up too quick and skewer yourself on some of these. On some of the real fingers, which I've done before, and that ain't pleasant. Okay, there's that one. 4 more to go, or 3 more to go. Okay, cutter bar's locked up. I really struggled on this second. Oh, don't want to leave that there. I can't go in there, the radio's playing YouTube things. I really struggled on this second chain. Come on. Could not get the bolt out, no matter what I did. It did not want to come out. And finally, I looked over, and the other feedback arm for the automatic header height was wedged straight down into the plate and wasn't letting the cutter bar come up on that side. And smacked it with a hammer, and the cutter bar jumped up and everything was loose all of a sudden. So I think before I cut beans, I'm just going to take these things off because I don't run the header height. I don't like it. I can run the header manually a lot faster than that thing can react. But I'm wondering if that's why this head always likes to push dirt right here and right here. I'm wondering if you hit a dip or something and the cutter bar drops far enough for those things to drop down to a certain point, if they're wedging and not letting the cutter bar come back up, and you literally got one spot on the cutter bar that's jammed into the ground from those feedback arms. So, but I guess while I got the forklift up here, we'll drop the chopper off since that needs to be done. Okay, now the chopper can come off. I already unhooked the drive belt and got that all tied back, so that part's done. Who the hell tightened that one? Okay, that is odd. That was a little tight for some unknown reason. Now, there's that. Okay, now I gotta swap the sprocket over for the high speed. Finally, just now got a call back from the Historical Society there in South Bend, trying to get some word out about trying to get some Oliver employees together from South Bend, and had a nice little talk with the guy, and I told him what I'd run into with the local news stations in the newspaper, and he just laughed and said, yeah, join the club. Anytime we try to plan an event, we gotta work like hell to get any kind of coverage whatsoever about it. He said in 2017 they tried to do a anniversary open house of the Oliver Mansion to commemorate, I can't remember what anniversary he said it was, but basically to commemorate the anniversary of J.D. Oliver taking ownership of the house after its completion. And they were trying to plan this big event. None of the news station, nobody wanted to cover it at all. Like that town, and he said the same thing that I've been explaining to you. He said that town does not give two shits about any of its history whatsoever. If it's not South Bend or their former dumbass mayor that is now Biden's transportation advisor or whatever the hell he is, the news in that town just does not care. But he said they'd try to put something decent together to make a Facebook post on their Facebook page. And I told him just tell them kind of, or put on there kind of what I'm looking for, and put my phone number on there, and just, I mean, really all it takes is if you can get one or two guys, and hopefully one or two guys know one or two more guys, and those guys know a couple more guys, and hopefully you can turn two guys into 15 or 20 or something. I guess I don't have that high hopes even if I can get 10 guys. But the whole thing is just strange because we went from going out to Charles City. Hasn't been a tractor turned out of that town or any iron poured in that town for 30 years. Since 93. And it is still a tractor town. That town cares so much about its history, it's not funny. And we talked, or we obviously used the local newspaper for putting the word out, and the newspaper thought it was so cool. They put it on the front page and then did 2 follow-up articles afterwards. Like, the newspaper lady literally showed up to the get-together and stayed there almost the whole time. And then you come here and the media's just like, what do you want us to do about it? We don't care. It's just, it's frustrating and disheartening, and you know, all of the above. But at least that's a step in the right direction. If I can get, if I can even get 10 guys together for this, I think it'd be a win at this point. So, but I need a screwdriver. And then this chain goes bye-bye because it's too long. And I think I got the right chain sitting over here with the sprocket. I'm assuming, because it was sitting on top of the sprocket. Where did I lay my wrench? There. It would have been nice if the 73 would have got the variable speed cylinder like the rest of the 4-digit machines did. But I guess since they figured by this time the 4-walker machines were kind of a dying class of combine, it must not have been worth their time to put that kind of engineering into it. Which it must not have hurt sales too bad, because they sold a crap ton of 7300s. Green ones and red ones both. And they were built forever. I think they built them for 9 or 10 years. They came out in 72, and I think they stayed on the sales sheet until like 81 or 82. Might have even been a little later than that. So if I remember right, the red one that I had for, I think I owned that machine a whole whopping 4 or 5 days, because I only bought it to get the head with it. But if I remember right, that combine was an 81. Now, before I throw the chain back on this, well, I can easily roll it over. I am going to get the sander and clean this shaft up a little bit, because it sure took a beating last year when I kept slugging this thing. And I had to keep getting on it with a pipe wrench. Back before I knew that there was 2 sets of retarding curtains installed in it, and there was only supposed to be 1. Never knew it was a problem until last year. Finally, after trying everything, looked inside the machine. It's like, okay, something's really screwed up here. 2 sets of retarding curtains. Oh, well, that's not supposed to be like that. So now I'm really curious to see how it cuts wheat, because after I took them things out, this thing went from hardly being able to cut beans at all to being a hog. So she really ought to love cutting wheat. But I'm gonna get these burr marks off here, because those are skin catchers. All right, I got that shaft deburred. Before fall, what I need to do is see if I can find a slug bar hub for it, like what the 525 has. I could just take the one off the 525 and put it on here because it would fit, but I can't bring myself to scavenge parts off the 525. That's not what she's there for. Should be the right chain, I hope. It's looking good. Oh yeah, this is the right chain. I've got like 3 different chains for these things. The one that's on the 525, the one that I just took off of here, and then this one. Because like every other sprocket combination requires a different length chain. One of the bad parts about using sprockets for a cylinder drive. But on the other hand, it's a good positive drive that doesn't ever care if you ain't got to worry about a belt slipping or anything like that. But on the flip side of that, oh, come on, dang you. If you do manage to slug it, you're not just slipping the cylinder drive, or you're not slipping the cylinder drive, you're slipping the main drive, and not only is that loud, but it's kind of hard on things. Should be tight enough. Usually you gotta run it for a couple rounds and recheck it anyhow. Oops. And for this part, I'm gonna have to throw it into gear. Okay, sprocket's all buttoned up. So let's get the concave slickened up a little bit. It likes to get sticky over winter. Although this one ain't nearly as bad as the 525. I don't know what was different about the one on the 525, but that one really liked to get sticky. Ow, come on. This one's hard to get to. There's grease zerks on the eccentrics too, but I'll hit those in a bit. That's not the part that gets sticky. The part inside the chassis will get sticky. And it stays in a wide range. start off. 3/4 is your starting setting. So concave is set for starters. And then the chaffer is actually probably about right. Maybe that looks pretty good. And the sieve, mind you, these are all just starting adjustments. It's gonna have to most likely change when we get to the field, but in all reality, this combine is actually, and the 525 was the same way. They were surprisingly forgiving with sieve settings. Actually, they're surprisingly forgiving with most settings, really. It looks good there. I probably ought to tighten that back up so it doesn't rattle loose, huh? All right, sprockets on, choppers off, cutter bars locked up, greased it, oiled the chains, checked the tire pressures, cleaned the air cleaner, vacuumed the cab out. Think that's everything. At least that's everything I could think of right offhand. Sieves are set. Fan speed should be close enough. It seems like no matter what crop I'm running, this thing pretty much likes the fan running wide open. It's kind of the way the 525 was too. 525 is, she still exists. Yeah, I didn't see any busted or missing or bent sickle sections. Oh, right there. There's one. Guess we need to replace that. Looks like just the one. Hopefully, after I get wheat cut, yep, just that one. After I get wheat cut, I'd really like to shit can that whole cutter bar. And it appears that Crary makes a cutter bar for a white 900 series 13-foot head, which a big difference between a 900 series and just the quick cut head is a 900 series went to a wobble box instead of a pitman arm. So that being said, the entire bar should fit. Why is that? That needs tightened up. The entire cutter bar should fit, except for I wouldn't need the pitman drive that would be down here on the end of the bar. So I would have to come up with a modification to this drive system that catches the bolts here in this part of the sickle, and should be, I don't think that should be too hard. Well, I can actually, we can, hold on a second. What we would essentially end up with would be, if I can get in here, would be this, kinda, not necessarily, but somewhat. So this is the love bar on the head for the 525, which looks like I need to clean my water drains out because she's standing full of water and we don't want none of that. But the drive plate would have to end up looking something like this, which I don't think would be too hard to change, even if we ended up just having to make our own from scratch, because there really ain't nothing to it. It's a bent piece of plate with some stuff welded on it, and it's not that big of a deal to copy. But that's what this is well, I ended up having to use the Love backbone itself, but it's got all Crary sickles on it, and I converted it to the Crary bolt-on because I've had 2 brand new bars in here from Shoop, and both of them, these studs are induction welded into the bar, and on both of them that I bought from Shoop, you get like 10 acres on them, and both of them the bolt sheared off for some unknown reason. So I ended up taking the actual factory Love backbone, and it could very well be an Oliver backbone, but either way, well, it can't be an Oliver backbone because it wouldn't have the Love drive on it. But drilled all the holes out to accept the Crary style bolts and did this. So, but this isn't essentially what it would end up having to be. But we hopefully can use the bolt pattern that would come on the bar and not have to use those big studs and just use the sickle bolts. It would just take a little bit of finagling. There we go. One of these days we'll get her back set up for running wheat, but it takes what I would really like to do that would make life a whole lot easier would just be to either get a 7300 feeder house and narrow it up, or what would probably be easier would be to get a 525 feeder house. Either probably off of a grain table would be easier because it more closely matches, and take a 525 feeder house and cut a quick attach plate off the front of, or it wouldn't be that hard to have one custom bent, but have a custom face plate bent up for the front of a 525 feeder house to convert it over to the quick switch style head hookup, and just put a quick attach feeder house on the 525, and then I could run that rigid head that I got for the 7300 on the 525 and wouldn't have to modify this head. Although I probably wouldn't. Actually, the best thing to do with this head would just be if I ended up taking that feeder house off and using it, which by the way it's built and now the way I'm looking at it, wouldn't really be that hard to do, and then just modify this head and make this head quick attach, which wouldn't be that hard to do because they basically use the same head body. I think the backbone, well, yeah, because here's the backbone. So the backbone looks like they use some 5x5 or 6x6 box, and this might be 4x6. But I don't think it would be that hard to take one of these feeder houses, put a quick or modify it for a quick attach plate, because this feeder house should be, yeah, maybe it is partially welded. Yeah, it looks like it is partially welded together. But if you can cut this feeder house off of this header body, oh no, it's bolted. Yeah, right there. So it is. Yeah, you just unbolt the top bolts here, that bottom row of bolts there, and then you back up. Okay, so yeah, that wouldn't be that hard at all. You wouldn't even have to cut it off the head. You just unbolt it. There's a bolt there, these bolts here, and then you just cut the face. Yeah, because this face plate comes out. Duh, because that's how they use the same head for the 45, the 35, and the 25. All use the same heads. The only thing that changed was the feeder house, because the feeder house got wider as you got bigger. So yeah, you just unbolt the center section and then you could bolt a bigger feeder house in for the bigger combines. But that would make usability across all 3 combines very, very easy, because the feeder house hookup on all the combines would be exactly the same. You could use all the heads on all the combines, which means you'd have to maintain fewer heads. So I don't think it would be, it's just one of them projects that I have more important projects, which is gonna take a while to get around to that one. But anyway, we got a sickle to change, and then the 73 should be ready to rock and roll. The reason that I want to go to a Crary cutter bar is A, I really love Crary Golden Cut cutter bars. The one on the 525 head isn't a golden cut. I put that one on before the golden cut came out. But it's essentially, I mean, they're almost identical, and that thing cuts like a dream. It'll cut faster than the combine can go. I really like the Crary bars, and after running this I'm going to call it a tiger jaw style, these three prong knives, they break at the drop of a hat. These things have no strength in them whatsoever. The tips like to break off every pebble you hit, or whatever the case may be. Crary, I've never broke a Crary sickle section. I've bent them, but I've never broke them. Those things are tough as nails. And this bar, especially if the beams are thin, does not cut for shit. Now, I'll give it partial reprieve because the lower guards on this thing are just about done for, and putting new guards on might help, but the guards for this thing are expensive as hell. And if I remember right, I was going to be at like $600 in guards to go through and do this whole head, or be $1,500 and put an all new Crary cutter bar on it with standard parts and know that it's going to cut good, or spend $500-$600 to put all new guards on this thing and turn around and still have it not cut for shit. I don't think it's a risk that I'm willing to take. So I want to put a Crary cutter bar on it. This guy down here, guess I don't understand why that one was loose. The top's not loose. Interesting. The other thing I don't like about this bar, just since I'm on the subject, is like right there, that busted sickle. Unless you get lucky and the sickle stops halfway in the stroke and they're in between the guards, you can't tell from the cab you got a busted sickle. And it never fails that the busted sickle ends up somewhere in the middle of the head underneath your spreader pass, and you can't even see the skip that it's leaving, that it's not cutting. Whereas if you got the big normal 3.5 inch or 3 inch, whatever standard sickles are, if you got one missing with the standard wraparound sickle guards, you can see it pretty easily from the cab. At least on these. On a big machine you can't because you're too far away from the head, but on this one you can. So I really just want to make that bar go bye-bye. Part of the wheat money this year is going to go towards getting the cutter bar on this and new rear rims and tires for my grain truck, because the tires on that are getting scary and I want to convert it to 22.5 radials so that it's got standard tires on it instead of 10/120s, which you can still get, but they're all foreign made and they're very, very, very expensive. Fill this thing up with fuel while I'm at it, because it's gonna go in the 4th of July parade tomorrow, and then I'll run it back over to my house and stick it in the barn until it's time to cut wheat, because there ain't no sense in it sitting outside. So, and I checked wheat Thursday. It's Thursday or Friday. Might have been Friday after I got done spraying. And I was finding kernels anywhere between milk and dough stage, so we still probably got a week or so, as long as we get decent drying weather. Wheat still, and there's still, it looks dry from the road till you get out in it, and then there's still a fair bit of green left in the stems. So I think it got all screwed up because we ran out of water. It was drying down to the point where it had fired about halfway up the stem. And then a couple weeks ago, we got that shot of rain, and I think it went, oh, well, we can probably push this a little further. And I think the rain pushed it ahead a little further, pushed it back a little further. So hopefully that means it filled the grain out a little better. We got a little better test weight. It appears that the head's filled out pretty good, all things considered. So, but won't know till it's going in the grain tank. And hopefully we get some decent weather to get it cut at a decent moisture, so that I don't have to dick around with that, because that's no fun. So anyhow, I guess that's it for this one. We're gonna catch you guys on the next one.